16 years after the death of Emperor Commodus, the Roman Empire was under the rule of twin emperors, Gaius and Caracalla, two inexperienced brothers who were as reckless as Emperor Commodus himself. Their reign led Rome into corruption due to their arrogant whims and greed for power. However, hope was not entirely lost. The story begins with a scene featuring a watercolor painting that summarizes the events of the first film, including the tale of Maximus Decimus and his tragic death. The events then shift to North Africa, in the city of Numidia, where a young farmer named Hanno lives. He spends his days working in the fields and tending to poultry. It becomes clear later that Hanno is actually Lucius, the son of Lucilla, and his wife is named Erat. While Erat is talking to Hanno, a signal from the army arrives, warning everyone of an impending Roman attack. Hanno dons his armor and helps his wife put on hers. They exchange wishes for good luck before heading toward the coastal fortress. There, the general informs them that the Romans are about to arrive and demands that everyone follow the traditional rituals, which include burning an offering to bring good fortune. As most of the attendees, including Erat, perform the ritual, Hanno refuses to partake. The general reprimands him for his disrespect, but Hanno responds that he doesn't need to make an offering to a god who has never answered his prayers. They share a laugh together as the Roman general Marcus Acacius prepares for battle, eating an apple and ordering his soldiers to lower the sails. As the battle begins, Hanno bids his wife farewell, asking her to take care of herself. He assures her that he will deal with the Romans, while she will support them from the tower. The Romans reached the walls of the fortress, and the Numidians responded by launching fiery projectiles. However, with the Romans' intense pressure, especially with their massive equipment, they managed to make progress in the siege. Hanno watched as General Acacius, despite his old age, fought with relentless ferocity. At that moment, Erat attempted to shoot an arrow at the general, but he ordered his soldiers to eliminate the archers. The soldiers carried out the command, and Erat fell into the sea. When Hanno saw what had happened to his wife, his attention was distracted. One of the Roman soldiers took advantage of this moment of distraction and stabbed him. Hanno fell into the water, unconscious, and during this time, he had a dream or vision. He saw Erat waiting for him in the distance. When he tried to approach her, he couldn't reach her. He called her name with longing, and she responded with a serene smile, assuring him that she would always love him and hope to see him again, but it would be after many years, not too soon. Hanno woke up to find himself floating on the shores of his destroyed city. The Romans had captured the wounded and looted the belongings of the fallen warriors. Hanno desperately searched for his wife's body until he found her. He pulled the arrow from her chest and held her, apologizing deeply for not being able to protect her. Shortly after, the Romans gathered the villagers and announced that their lands now belonged to the Roman Empire. They were told that they would become slaves to the great empire, with the strong being exploited as laborers, while the rest would live under a faint hope of survival. The villagers' hearts were filled with sorrow, and they shed tears for their lost loved ones. To prevent the spread of disease, Acacius ordered the bodies of the dead to be burned. Afterward, Hanno and General Acacius were transported on Roman ships to their next destination. Unfortunately, the general was suffering from serious wounds, and his condition worsened in the following days. He became weak and shaky, and his wounds would not heal. Hanno tried to help him, but the general refused, insisting that his condition was hopeless. In a weak voice, the general apologized for the loss of Erat, recalling the first time he met Hanno when he was just a young foreign boy from distant lands. From the beginning, Hanno had been obedient and disciplined, carrying out every order without hesitation. Over time, he earned the general's respect and affection, becoming the best warrior in his army. But the general deeply regretted that fate had led them to this tragic moment. The general expressed his desire to join his ancestors in the afterlife, as he felt there was nothing left for him to fight for. However, he urged Hanno not to give in to the same fate. During a break, Hanno recalled the moment he fled from Rome, remembering the scene of Lucius playing with other children in the village. Suddenly, the emperor's guards appeared, searching for him. Lucius fled and spent months in a new land, where an elderly woman hosted him in her home. When Lucius decided to escape, he asked her to come with him, but she chose to stay. Unfortunately, the emperor's guards destroyed the village and eliminated all the witnesses. Later, when they arrived in Ostia, Hanno tried to wake his commander, but it was in vain. They were all transported by cart to the Colosseum, where they were prepared for survival trials that would determine who would live and who would die. Meanwhile, General Acacius returned to Rome, where he was welcomed like a hero. The people cheered for him, and the emperor expressed his gratitude for his accomplishments, especially after his conquest of one of the most important regions in Africa. As a token of honor, the emperor placed a laurel wreath on his head. However, when Acacius was alone, he requested a few days of rest to be with his wife, whom he missed. The emperor refused his request, warning him that while his victory in Africa was impressive, he could not retire now. He told him there were grand plans ahead, including expansion into Persia, India, and other distant regions. He made it clear that failure to carry out the orders would result in severe punishment. To celebrate his victories, the emperor decided to host an entire week of games at the Colosseum to entertain the public, including deadly gladiator battles. Hanno arrived in the Colosseum arena, where many prominent merchants were in attendance, including a notable figure named Macrinus. Hanno's opponents in the battle were a group of vicious baboons. When the baboons were released from their cages, one attacked General Acacius, biting his carotid artery, causing him to bleed to death. Hanno tried to save his commander, but it was too late. The general died in his arms, prompting Hanno to seek revenge. He attacked the baboons fiercely, using chains to strike and choke them. At one point, one of the baboons resisted and bit Hanno's arm, leaving him with deep wounds. The chaos in the battle escalated when the guards began shooting arrows at the gladiators to stir up more disorder. Despite all this, Hanno and a few other gladiators managed to survive, impressing Macrinus. He decided to buy Hanno, considering him one of his most valuable possessions. That night, General Acacius returned home after a long day. At first, the soldiers did not recognize him as he wore a cloak that concealed his features, but he revealed his identity, and they allowed him entry. Inside, his wife Lucy was waiting for him, and she welcomed him with great warmth and joy. They sat together, and he shared the events of the past few days with her, then asked for some privacy, instructing the servants to leave. Afterward, the couple expressed their love and longing for one another. Elsewhere, the new slaves arrived at Maximus's camp, where they were greeted by the trainer Vigo. He explained that they were now part of Maximus's entertainment force, and although they were slaves, those who stood out as exceptional gladiators might be given the chance to buy their freedom. The group began their training under strict supervision, and Maximus was eager to test Hanno's skills, who had earned the nickname the Ape. Maximus tried to speak to Hanno in a friendly manner, praising his strength and potential, suggesting that together they could accomplish great things. However, Hanno ignored him, which angered Maximus and led him to order Vigo to punish Hanno. At first, Hanno allowed the blows to fall without resistance, but after taking some painful hits, he retaliated with force. He managed to disarm Vigo and struck him violently, to the point where it seemed he might kill him. Maximus intervened at the right moment, stopping the fight, saying he had seen enough and decided to take Hanno to the city soon. That night, Hanno was lost in memories of his past, reflecting on what he had once been before the events changed him. The following day, Maximus took Hanno to a grand party, where Hanno became the main attraction. During the party, Maximus conversed with a corrupt senator, expressing his ambition to become a senator one day. The senator suggested placing a bet on the gladiators to add more excitement. In front of all the guests, Maximus presented Hanno as an unbeatable fighter. When his opponent arrived, Hanno declared that he did not want to fight, pointing out that the scene was absurd and pointless, and that they were exploiting the audience for no reason. However, his opponent insisted on the fight, and the battle ended with Hanno killing his opponent, causing the senator to lose the bet. Hanno won everyone's admiration, especially that of Emperor Gaius, who asked him to say a few words. Hanno angrily declared that the gates of hell are open day and night, and people like them deserve to be there. The emperor was shocked and enraged by this statement and looked at Maximus with disapproval. Maximus quickly intervened, explaining that Hanno was just a poet, and his words were not meant as an insult. Afterward, Maximus and Hanno left the party, and Hanno took a bath to regain his strength. Maximus approached him to congratulate him on his outstanding performance, giving him some coins. He explained that slaves were not allowed to own money, but gladiators could earn enough to buy their freedom. Maximus assured Hanno that with his support, he could rise to great heights and power, but warned him firmly that disobedience would cost him his life. In return, Maximus promised that he would reward Hanno with whatever he wanted if he remained obedient. When Maximus asked Hanno what he wanted, Hanno responded clearly, "I want the head of General Acacius." Maximus was surprised by the request but promised that if Hanno played his cards right, he could achieve it. At the same time, he warned him that losing hope or making mistakes would cost him his life. That night, a group of senators, including Senator Jares, gathered with Wasilla, who confirmed that the time had come to reform Rome and restore its greatness. The members agreed that the first step toward achieving this would be to carry out a coup to overthrow the old government and impose their own laws. Realizing that this would require significant military support, Acacius agreed to help, stating that he had an army of over 5,000 loyal men waiting at a camp near Rome. The coup was scheduled to take place after the games in the Colosseum, allowing everyone time to prepare. Meanwhile, Hanno and the other slaves were on their way to Rome. At the city gates, Hanno was ridiculed for his monkey-related nickname. While he was gazing at the statue of Romulus and Remus, some of the slaves who did not know the story asked him to tell it. Hanno explained the tale. Long ago, there were twin brothers abandoned in the wilderness, but a she-wolf found them and raised them as her own. As they grew, they became great military leaders, but their greed for power led to their separation. In the end, one brother killed the other, and the city of Rome was founded by the surviving brother, who became one of the first leaders of the state. The slaves were amazed by the story and asked Hanno how he knew so much about Rome's history despite being from Africa. Hanno replied that when he was young, a Roman man had come to his city and influenced him. Hanno had taken care of the man at night, and during that time, he learned stories in the history of the Romans. However, in the end, that man was killed and eaten. A few days later, Maximus was speaking with a senator friend who did not have enough money to cover his bet. Maximus suggested that the senator double his bet, giving him a chance to recover his losses or lose even more. When they arrived at the Colosseum, Hanno was taken to his cell, where he noticed the names of gladiators who had earned their freedom before, including the legendary Maximus. On the first day of the games, the imperial brothers and the senator gathered in the stands. General Acacius was asked to deliver some encouraging words, but he preferred to stay by his wife Lucilla. Under pressure from the emperor, Acacius gave a lukewarm speech, wishing everyone enjoyment of the games organized by the emperor. In the arena, the gladiators entered to face their opponents, and Hanno noticed Wasilla among the crowd. His opponent was a warrior named the Destroyer, who rode a rhinoceros. Hanno advised his fellow gladiators to remain patient and calm to face the situation, but one of the slaves ignored his advice and lost his life in the process. With a style reminiscent of Maximus, Hanno took a handful of arena dust and scattered it in his hand in preparation for the battle. When the rhinoceros attacked, he skillfully handled the creature. Eventually, the master, the Destroyer, descended into the arena to face Hanno in a hand-to-hand fight. During the battle, the emperor remembered Hanno's previous statement about the gates of hell and recited the line of poetry he had said. At that moment, Lucilla completed the poem, which astonished Maximus, who began to realize that Hanno was not just an ordinary gladiator, but a figure with many secrets and surprises. Thanks to his experience and intelligence, Hanno was able to continue fighting, even though his opponent managed to pin him down for a while. The crowd in the stands erupted, calling for mercy, and Wasilla joined in, pleading with the emperor for clemency. In the end, the emperor gave a thumbs up as a sign of forgiveness, but Hanno, instead of yielding to the crowd's wishes, pressed on, using his sword to finish off his opponent, decapitating him before collapsing from exhaustion. The other gladiators expressed their sorrow for the loss of their fallen comrade, but at the same time, they praised Hanno for his skill and victory. Meanwhile, Wasilla was at her home, reading the words of the poem that Hanno had recited, only to notice a surprising connection. She realized that Hanno was her son. She recalled the last time she saw him, when she had left the city after Maximus died. Despite her love for her son, she had been forced to send him away for his safety, promising to return once things improved. In the Colosseum, Hanno was being treated by the state physician, Rafi. The doctor, who seemed more concerned with saving lives than taking them, explained to Hanno that many warriors and gladiators ended up dying from injuries or infections after battles. A friendship soon developed between them, and Rafi offered Hanno opium to relieve his pain. Later, Maximus visited Hanno to congratulate him on his performance, while keeping a close watch on Lucilla, growing suspicious of her intentions. Maximus began to feel that Lucilla was hiding something significant. During a conversation with a friend, Maximus revealed rumors about Lucilla's former husband, who was said to have strange inclinations, raising questions about the legitimacy of her son Lucius. He also mentioned that Lucilla had been liberated in her youth, having had relationships with many men, including Maximus. Maximus began to connect the dots, noting that Lucius, who had disappeared when he was 12, was now 16. Upon analyzing Hanno's features and his extensive knowledge of Rome's history, Maximus became convinced that Hanno was Lucilla's and Maximus's son. That night, Wasilla took advantage of the quiet of the dark to sneak into the Colosseum, where she visited Hanno. When she asked if he remembered her, he denied it, adding that he didn't want to see her. She tried to explain what had happened, saying that she had been forced to send him away when he was 12 to ensure his safety amidst the political turmoil. She admitted that Maximus had been his real father, but she hadn't been able to search for him. Angry and reserved, Hanno asked her to leave. Meanwhile, Lucilla returned home to tell Lysias the truth, confirming that her son Lucius was still alive, but now a gladiator under the name Hanno. Lysias promised her that he would intervene to save him in the coming days, but a servant who had been eavesdropping on their conversation relayed everything he had heard to Maximus. The next day, the gladiators prepared for the next round of games. During training, Hanno mocked Figo, who punished him by making him row continuously, adding difficulty to the day's tasks and testing his endurance and willpower. In the evening, Ruby met with Hanno and tended to his wounds, sparking a conversation between them. Hanno shared his painful story, revealing that he had been married to a woman he deeply loved, only for her to be killed by General Acasus. In turn, Ruby shared his own story, having left the life of the sword and married a beautiful woman, choosing to live a peaceful life away from violence. The next day, the gladiators prepared for the second round of games. Hanno encouraged his fellow gladiators to remain steadfast and courageous, emphasizing the importance of following his instructions. The day's training involved reenacting a famous battle known as Camos, where the opponents relied on archers to weaken the gladiators. Some of the gladiators succeeded in dodging the arrows, while Hanno planned to use a crossbow to kill General Acasus. However, his attempt failed when he was attacked by one of the opponents before he could shoot. The round ended in chaos, with gladiators accusing each other of being responsible for the failed attempt. However, Figo, the gladiator's supervisor, was aware that Hanno was the one behind it. Meanwhile, the servant who had overheard the secrets of Lucilla informed one of the senators that Hanno was her son, making the situation even more complicated. Later, Maximus visited the senator to collect the wager money, but found the senator unable to pay. Maximus decided to seize the senator's house as compensation. The senator attempted to bribe him with important information, and after hearing it, Maximus showed pleasure but insisted on kicking him out. That night, Acasus and a group of his soldiers snuck into the Colosseum with the intent of capturing Hanno, but they encountered the royal guards, leading to a violent battle that resulted in the death of all of Acasus's soldiers. Hanno and Wasila were captured and taken to the royal palace. The imperial twins, who had trusted Acasus, were deeply disappointed by what they considered betrayal. When confronting him, one of them suggested executing Acasus immediately, but the other objected, insisting that Acasus should die a slow, painful death to match the crimes he had committed. Hanno and Acasus were held in cells, while the twins praised Maximus for his loyalty to the empire, promising him a prominent position as one of their closest advisors. Meanwhile, Hanno continued to recover from his wounds with the help of Ruby, who informed him that the name Maximus had been removed from the list of gladiators in the Colosseum. He also told him the story of Maximus, the great warrior who changed the fate of the empire. Once a loyal soldier to Emperor Marcus Aurelius, he became a slave and a gladiator, fighting against the corrupt Emperor Commodus and dying a free man. The following day, Ozius was charged with treason and sentenced to death in the arena. Lucilla, bound to her seat, was forced to watch her husband face death. The battle began with 5 of the emperor's guards attacking him, but he managed to defeat them. He then faced a more experienced opponent. Suddenly, Hanno entered the arena, determined to face Ozius. Though Ozius did not want to fight, Hanno accused him of killing his wife and destroying his city. Ozius justified his actions, saying he had no choice and sincerely apologized, admitting he did not deserve forgiveness. In a moment of surrender, Ozius threw his sword to the ground, awaiting the emperor's judgment. When the emperor ordered Hanno to kill Ozius, Hanno approached to carry out the command but suddenly stopped. Ozius confessed his love for Lucilla and the nobility of her character, causing Hanno to hesitate. He found himself torn between revenge and honor. When the emperor noticed Hanno's hesitation, he ordered his guards to end the fight immediately. The guards attacked Ozius with a barrage of arrows, killing him before the eyes of everyone. Hanno was enraged, shouting in disbelief, questioning if this was how heroes were treated in the empire. He was then dragged back to his cell amid the growing protests from the crowd, which began to voice its discontent with what had just transpired. That night, Mix visited the cell to confront Hanno. He told him that he had given him a chance to achieve his dream, but that he had squandered it. Mix pointed out that Hanno was now in a perilous situation, but remained unfazed. He admitted to his own ambition to become the next emperor of Rome. In the streets, angry crowds poured out in protest, igniting a major crisis within the empire. During a heated meeting between the leaders, Gi insulted his brother Cacal, calling him weak, which infuriated Cacal. Deciding to confront his brother, Cacal seized the opportunity that Mix had carefully orchestrated. With Mix's help, Cacal killed his brother by decapitating him, using the ensuing chaos to strengthen his control over the city. Meanwhile, Lucilla faced her own death sentence. She used her final moments to speak with Hanno, who expressed his condolences for the loss of Lucius, acknowledging his bravery. Hanno confided in her about his own personal tragedy when he lost his wife, but now, having found his mother, he vowed to protect her no matter the cost. In the Senate meeting, Kakal announced the death of his brother Gi and appointed his pet monkey Dindus as a member of the Senate, with Mix also taking a second seat. Kakal left the chamber, leaving Mix to reveal his intentions. Mix declared that he was now the true ruler of the empire. He presented the head of Gi as proof of the empire's fall into the hands of a madman. As the Senate members trembled in fear, they pledged their allegiance to Mix, too terrified of his wrath to refuse. Thus began a new chapter of chaos and dictatorship in Rome, with Mix emerging as the de facto ruler of the empire. On the other side, Mix approaches Lucilla and reveals his painful past. He explains that he was not just a soldier, but a slave who endured torture and cruelty. He tells her that the present moment is his only chance to bring real change to the empire. However, he believes that her death is the key to fulfilling his greatest dream of taking control of the empire. He wishes her a peaceful final moment before her life ends. In the dungeon, Lucius speaks with Ravi, who asks him to send an urgent message to Lucius' soldiers. He explains that their leader is dead and their city desperately needs their help. To prove his sincerity, he gives them Maximus' ring as a symbol of trust. The soldiers arrive and are moved by Lucius' words. They decide to support him and join the fight to free Rome. Meanwhile, Vigo frees Hanno and gives him a wooden sword as his first weapon. When Hanno protests, Vigo responds that the weapon doesn't matter as much as the skill of the one wielding it. The gladiators begin to escape, determined to fight and free the empire from the hands of the tyrants and the greedy who had destroyed it. In the arena, traitors are prepared as sacrifices, with Lucilla at the head of the altar. Lucius leads the charge to rescue his mother, with the help of the gladiators and the crowd, who join in the fight against the tyrants. During the battle, just as Lucius is about to save his mother, Mix shoots a fatal arrow, ending her life. Lucilla dies in her son's arms, leaving Lucius heartbroken. Lucius seeks vengeance against Mix, who escapes but remains ready for battle. Mix knows that Lucius' army is closing in, but he relies on his strength, 6,000 soldiers from the Imperial Guard. As they reach the city gates, they are confronted by Lucius' soldiers. Lucius faces Mix one-on-one and accuses him of the crimes he's committed, but Mix justifies his actions, claiming that he was chosen by the gods to carry them out. Lucius refuses to accept his excuses and focuses on ending the conflict. In a decisive battle, Mix tries to kill Lucius, but Maximus' shield protects him. In a counterattack, Lucius manages to sever Mix's arm, then decapitates him, ending the tyrant's life. The body of Mix falls into the water, and both groups watch in silence as the battle comes to a close. Lucius steps forward and declares that the war is over. He assures them that his grandfather Marcus Aurelius' dream will now be realized, promising to build a better government with their help. Everyone agrees to follow his leadership, and Lucius becomes the new emperor of Rome. In the end, Lucius returns to the arena where his mother died. He asks for her forgiveness, kneels on the ground, and takes a handful of sand, praying to his father Maximus for strength. In an emotional moment, the hand of Maximus appears as a symbol of his eternal support for his son, showing that he never abandoned him, even in the toughest of times.